Hey everyone, and welcome. If you're a drone pilot in Europe, and especially if you're gearing up for that A2 certificate, then this one's for you. Today, we are going to crack the code on aviation weather reports. This is an absolutely essential skill for any pilot who wants to fly safe and legal missions. So, let me just ask you this. Are you relying on the right weather data for your missions? Because, when you're responsible for an aircraft, even a small one, that standard consumer weather app on your phone, well, it just isn't going to cut it. Professional operations demand professional-grade information. So here's our flight plan for today. We'll kick things off with why weather is such a critical factor. Then we'll get into the huge difference between an observation and a forecast. After that, we'll actually crack the aviation code itself. And then we'll see how that gives you a massive edge as a drone pilot. And finally, we'll run through some real-world go or no-go decisions. First up, let's talk about the big picture. Under the EU regulations, the remote pilot, and that means you, is ultimately responsible for the flight. And when it comes to assessing risk, trust me, weather is almost always the biggest, most unpredictable variable you have to master. Okay, so where do we get this professional-grade weather data? Well, it comes from two core reports that are basically the universal language of aviation, the METAR and the TAF. Let's dive into what they are and, more importantly, how they're different. At the highest level, it's actually pretty simple. Just think of it like this. A METAR is the now report. It tells you exactly what's happening at this very moment. A TAF, on the other hand, is the future report. It predicts what's going to happen. You absolutely need both, but you use them for very different reasons. Let's start with the METAR, which stands for Meteorological Aerodrome Report. This is your snapshot. It's a direct observation of the current weather at an airport, and it's issued every single hour. It's your go-to source for answering that one crucial question right before you spin up the props. Is it safe to fly right now? And then we have the TAF, the Terminal Aerodrome Forecast. Now, this is all about planning. It gives you a prediction of the weather for the next 24, sometimes even 30 hours. This is what you're looking at the day before or the morning of a mission to answer the question, will it be safe to fly later today? This table really breaks down those key differences nicely. A METAR is all about that immediate, real-time data for your go-no-go decision. The TAF, that's for your strategic mission planning. And notice the unique things here. Because it's a current observation, only a METAR can give you the current temperature and the atmospheric pressure, which we call QNH. On the flip side, only a TAF, as a forecast, can predict how the weather is going to change over time. Okay, let's get into the good stuff. Now, I know the code looks intimidating, but it follows a very strict, very logical structure. And once you learn the sequence, you'll be able to read any report from literally anywhere in the world. So here it is, a full METAR string. Yeah, at first glance, it's just a jumble of letters and numbers, but it is a logical code. You've got the airport identifier, the date and time, and then a series of groups describing the weather. Let's break down the parts that really matter for us as drone pilots. Let's start with the big three. First up, wind. The code 24015G25KT tells us the wind is coming from 240 degrees at a steady 15 knots. But that G25 part, that is absolutely crucial for us. It means it's gusting up to 25 knots, and gusts are what can really knock a drone out of the sky. Next, visibility is 6,000 meters. And finally, present weather. -RA means light rain. Any rain at all is a potential red flag. Next, let's look at the clouds. SCT-008 means scattered clouds with a base at 800 feet. A little higher up, BKN-015CB tells us there's a broken cloud ceiling at 1,500 feet. But look at that CB. That is a critical warning. It stands for cumulonimbus, the type of cloud that brings thunderstorms. Finally, we get the temperature at 7 degrees, the dew point at 5, and the pressure at 1008 hectopascals. Remember, this kind of precise, current data is something you only find in a METAR. Now let's switch over to a TAF. It starts off looking pretty similar, right? You've got the airport, the time, a validity period. But the real power of the TAF for planning comes from these forecast change indicators you see at the end, words like BECMG and tempo. So BECMG, which stands for becoming, signals a gradual but permanent shift. It's telling you that within a specific time window, the conditions are going to change, and then they're going to stay that way. This is absolutely critical for figuring out the best time of day to schedule your flight. Tempo, on the other hand, indicates temporary fluctuations. These are conditions that are expected to come and go. They might be intense, maybe like a passing rain shower, but they aren't expected to last. This tells you that you might have to pause your mission and just wait for a window of better weather to pass through. So, now we know how to read the code, but how do we actually turn that knowledge into a real operational edge? Let's look at how this data specifically applies to flying your drone. This is where it all comes together. You check the wind and especially the gusts against your drone's manufacturer limits. You confirm the visibility is high enough to maintain visual line of sight, what we call VLOS. You check the cloud ceiling to make absolutely sure you can stay below that legal limit of 120 meters. And you scan for any hints of precipitation or thunderstorms, both of which are an absolute no-go, period. Now for the really pro-level data you just can't get from a standard app. Remember that temperature and dew point from the METAR? Well, if the difference between them, we call it the spread, is 2 degrees Celsius or less, there is a very, very high risk of fog forming. And that, my friends, is a game-changing piece of information for flight safety. And here's another one, your battery performance. That temperature reading in the METAR is your best friend when it gets cold. At 0 degrees Celsius, your LiPo batteries can lose up to 30% of their capacity. Just poof! Flying in the cold without knowing this is just asking for trouble. A METAR gives you the hard data you need to adjust your flight times and manage your batteries properly. Okay, time to put this all together. Let's run through a practical scenario. You're the pilot in command. You get to make the call. All right, here's the situation. You're on site. You're ready to fly a mapping mission. You pull the latest METAR. It reads 34222G35KT 5000 minus SHN BKN 012 M01/M02 Q1013. Based on that, do you fly? So, what do you think? Do you take off? Let's break down the data. The decision is a firm no-go, and here's exactly why. First, the gusts are 35 knots. That is far too high for most commercial drones. Second, the code SHSN means snow showers, a huge risk to your electronics. And third, the temperature is -1 degree, which would severely impact your battery performance. This one METAR gives you 3 clear, undeniable reasons to scrub the flight. And that brings us to the core professional workflow, which is summarized perfectly right here. You use the TAF for your strategic planning, to decide if and when you should even go to the site. Then, you use the latest METAR right before you take off for that final, critical decision. This dual-layer analysis, this is what separates the amateurs from the professionals. So, I'll leave you with a question to think about. Now that you have this skill, what is the very first thing you're going to look up? Go find the maximum wind resistance for your specific drone, commit it to memory, and make that the first thing you check on every single METAR and TAF you read from now on. Hey, if you found this explainer valuable, please do me a favor and head over to the Jolly Roger Aerial Photography YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. Like this video, leave a comment with any questions you might have, and most importantly, share it with other pilots. The more we all know, the safer we all fly. Thanks for watching and fly safe.